Okay, it is time to begin the meeting. It is 3 o'clock here locally. If everyone would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Madam Clerk, we have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Keenan.
Present.
Commissioner White.
Present.
Chairman Holder.
Present. With all members present, none absent, a quorum does exist, the meeting can begin. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the prior meeting.
Actually, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, should that one be?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, sorry.
Has everyone had a chance to read them, and do we have a motion to approve the minutes, please? I've read them. I would make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our prior meeting. Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes from the prior meeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? With all in favor, none opposed, the meeting minutes of the prior meeting are approved. Next item on the agenda is the transfer of appropriations resolution. Is our CPA on the line, please? Not hearing him, I will start the process out. He was supposed to join us on the line, on the meeting, and but I'll begin the process. The first item is the transfer of appropriation resolution. This process is to amend the prior year's budget to account for items that were over and under spent. It is somewhat lengthy. It's about 6 pages long, so I'll dispense with reading of it. We normally do this every year, and the total process is by fund, is broken down by fund, but does not expend over any other funds. Is there any questions from anyone as to this resolution?
I have no questions. Do we have someone join us?
This is Jim Smershel.
Oh, Jim, thank you very much. You are on the line now. I had just spoken briefly to the first item, the next item on the agenda, which was a transfer of appropriations resolution. Would you like to speak to it briefly before we adopt it?
Of course. And I heard the operative two terms, which is speak to it and briefly. So you have before you the transfer of appropriations resolution for the year ended November 30, 2020. And it is the required and appropriate document which validates and authorizes the individual line item expenditures in the ordinary course of business during the year, which is to say, at the beginning of this fiscal year, the county commissioners adopted a budget, and that budget included a total estimate of expenditures, and it included an estimate of expenditures by specific line item. And so as the year has progressed, as you might imagine, without a crystal ball, the individual line item expenditures were not originally as always envisioned, some higher and some lower. The total amount expended was less than that appropriated, which is appropriate. And so this transfer ordinance simply validates the individual line item expenditures and amends the budget to reflect that. And, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that you would review and approve.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the resolution.
I will second that motion. We have a motion and a second to approve the transfer resolution as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Keenan.
A.
White.
A.
Chairman Holder.
A. With 3 A's, no nay votes, the resolution is hereby hereby approved and adopted. The next item on the agenda is the budget appropriations ordinance for the new year. Mr. Smersel, would you care to speak briefly to that one as well?
Yes, sir. Thank you. You have before you the proposed budget appropriations ordinance for the fiscal year beginning December 1st, that's today, and ending November 30th, 2021. It begins on page 1 of your document and ends on page 29. And after a executive summary, I'm going to suggest that you hold a roll call vote and approve the budget appropriations. So the appropriations ordinance before you includes total expenditures of $15,191,575 from all funds of the county, and that is an increase from the previous year. But to really understand this year versus last, you need to look at some of the specifics. So, for example, the largest single item, line item within the budget in terms of funds is the county general fund. And the county general fund is this year $8,971,392 in appropriations. That compares to last year's appropriations of $8,573,000. Sorry, $8,573,000. So that is an increase year on year of some $398,000, which is about 5%. However, that doesn't nearly tell the story, because within this year's appropriations, there are appropriated capital expenditures of in excess of $600,000. And those appropriated capital expenditures are some $290,000 greater than they were last year. And so if you boil out that $290,000 in additional capital expenditures, you would have a less than 1% increase to the budget. I'm going to speak to that for a second, and I'll come back to it. Come back to the general fund. So those additional capital expenditures that I just referenced that are included within the appropriations are expenditures that are anticipated to be funded with CARES Act monies that are included in the budget as a revenue source. And so this is the county appropriately taking the actions to receive CARES Act funding via and through the state of Illinois, and expending those monies, because that's a reimbursement-only grant, expending those monies appropriately on improvements to the courthouse in these difficult COVID times. And so when you boil that out of the general fund expenditures, as I said, you get to a less than 1% increase. In addition to that, as we'll see in more detail in a moment, there were tax receipts in connection with real estate taxes, which were not received as budgeted and appropriated in the fiscal year 2020, and which will instead be received in and are appropriated in 2021. And so that has the impact of pushing expenditures into this year as well. And so when you take those two things into account, I believe that the total appropriations are really extremely conservative relative to the operation of the county and relative to the previous year's activities. So I mentioned real estate taxes. So let's talk about that for just a moment, because this budget, total budget of $15,191,000, will be funded with real estate taxes levied in the current year of some $4,443,000. In addition, there are monies to be received from the previous year's levy that will be flowing into this year of $2.9 million that are appropriately budgeted. And as I mentioned, that's part of what's driving the appropriation expenditures amount. So real estate taxes for this year of $4,443,000 are being levied to fund the total appropriations. There's also replacement taxes of some $750,000 that is budgeted to be received from the state of Illinois to fund these appropriations. In addition, I mentioned the CARES Act monies. Those are some $332,000. Those are new sources this year. When I say this year, this coming budget year, there was a smaller amount actually received in the current fiscal year. There was $62,027 received in the current year meaning the year ended November 2020, that were CARES Act monies as well. But those included in this budget ordinance are $332,331,691 to be exact in CARES Act monies that are anticipated to pay for those capital improvements. There's also county fees that are budgeted of $1,113,000. That compares to that $1,113,000 compares to last year's $1,130,000. So it's budgeted to be slightly decreased. There's also monies from the state of Illinois that are budgeted in the appropriations ordinance to fund these expenditures. There's a budget of $3,021,900 from state of Illinois sources. That also is down slightly from the actual collections in 2020 of $3,027,000, which in turn was down from the budgeted allocations last year of $3,173,000. The largest components of the state of Illinois monies are the sales taxes of $1,250,000, and that's projected to be flat relative to the previous year, and income taxes of $1,400,000, and that's projected to be slightly higher. So those are the revenue sources that pay for, in large part, the $15,191,000 of expenditures for the county's appropriations. Now, I mentioned the $8,971,000 in general fund monies, which, as I mentioned, once you boil out the additional capital improvements, are less than 1%, and some of that flows over as expenditures from the previous year that had to be carried over because the real estate taxes weren't collected in full. So other significant expenditures are the IMRF fund, which of course is out of the county's control, of $2,146,000, and the Social Security fund of $1,150,000. And of course, all of those monies are directed by statute. So that, Mr. Chairman, is a capsulized summary of the county appropriations ordinance, and I would be willing to answer, happy to answer any questions and turn it over to you for adoption.
Is there any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I thought Jim did a very good job of explaining this. I have no questions, and I would move for approval.
I would second that motion. We have a motion and a second to move the approval of the budget appropriations ordinance. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Pena?
Aye.
Mr. White?
Aye.
Chairman Holder?
Aye. With 3 ayes and no nays, the budget appropriations ordinance is hereby adopted. Next item on the agenda is the statement of tax levies ordinance. Mr. Sparkle, would you care to speak to that one, please?
Yes, sir. You will find in your budget packet on pages 30 through 34. The ordinance to allow for tax levies, and that ordinance is in the amounts as shown below. It's for the sum of $4,443,000, as you see detailed on page 30. Mr. Chairman, you will want to write in $4,443,000 into the second paragraph as you pass this ordinance, because that is the total amount that is being levied. You see the taxes levied for the special funds and for the general fund are included, and I think it's somewhat self-explanatory. Each one of these levies is specifically to cover expenses as detailed on pages 30 through 33. And Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that you entertain a motion and pass this ordinance.
Thank you. Mr. Sparkle, is there any other questions? None. Hearing none, I would make a motion to approve the ordinance for tax levy ordinance.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the tax levy ordinance. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. White?
Aye.
Mr. Keenan?
Aye.
Chairman Holder?
A. With 3 ayes and no nays, the tax levy ordinance is hereby adopted. Next item on the agenda is the appropriate 708 board tax levy ordinance. Mr. Smercel, would you care to speak to it briefly?
Yes, sir. You have before you the appropriation ordinance for the 708 board for the period beginning December 1st, 2020 and ending November 30, 2021. The total appropriations associated with the 708 board ordinance is $480,000. And there are, as you can see, 6 items listed. I believe it somewhat speaks for itself, and I would suggest a motion and approval of same.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adopt? Make a motion we adopt the 708 board ordinance. Second, levy ordinance. We have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Mr. Keenan?
Aye.
Chairman Holder?
A. With 3 ayes and no nays, the 708 board appropriation ordinance is hereby adopted. The next item on the agenda is the 708 board tax levy ordinance. Do you care to speak to that?
No, that was the levy ordinance.
No, sir, that was, you're correct. That was the appropriation ordinance. That was the budget ordinance for $480,000. That's correct. And then next is the statement of tax levies, which is to help fund the appropriation ordinance. And that tax levy is for $235,000, which is appropriate under the circumstances. And simply put, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend examination, vote, and approval of this tax levy.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the tax levy ordinance. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the tax levy ordinance for the 708 board. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Keenan?
Aye.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Chairman Holder?
A. With 3 ayes and no nays, the 708 tax levy ordinance is hereby approved. Is there any old business to bring before the board? Hearing none, we will adjourn the session of the prior year's county board meeting, and we'll open with another meeting following this one. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any further discussion under the old, board?
Mr. Chairman, just real quickly, and this is, wasn't sure where it belongs, but just so it's on the record, want to specifically extend our appreciation and recognition for the hard work and competence of Carol and Megan, both of whom were instrumental in allowing for the preparation of this budget, and we very much appreciate their efforts.
Thank you very much, and remember, at the next meeting, we have the working transfer resolutions to do. So if you can remain on the meeting for about another 20 minutes or so.
Of course.
All right. Anything else before we adjourn? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned to begin the meeting of the new year of the county. Okay, so we will begin the New Year's meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. Okay, roll call vote, please. Call the roll, please. Apologize.
That's okay. Commissioner White,
Present.
Commissioner Keenan,
Present.
Chairman Holder.
Present. With all three present, a quorum exists for the meeting to begin. First item on the agenda of the new meeting for the new year is the Highway Department claims and a labor's contract. First, let's do the Highway Department claims. Would you care to speak to those, Engineer Ringling? There's not much there.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the highway department claims. I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the Highway Department claims. Do you have any other questions or discussions? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Highway Department claims are allowed. The next item on the agenda is the labor's contract. This contract runs from July 1st until July 3rd, 2021.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to make it known, this agreement basically keeps their salary the same as the previous contract, but it does increase their health insurance benefits by a small amount, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1%. $45 a month. So we had a tentative agreement with that, and you're telling me that the union rep has signed off on this. And with that, I would move to approve this agreement.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the new laborers contract agreement. Is there any other questions? Hearing none, it is a roll call vote. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Keenan,
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Aye.
Chairman Holder.
A. With 3 A's and no nays, the laborers contract is hereby adopted. One moment, please, while we complete the work in front of us. Lines. Michelle, are you there, please? Could you give your report, please?
We have 51 residents in-house with 8 Medicare. Our claims and payroll will come up next week. We won't do them till Tuesday of next week. We did test all our residents again today, and everybody came back negative.
Is there any questions from anyone?
So the claims that we have in our packet need to be approved for our last meeting that we couldn't approve today, because that was on a Wednesday.
Yes.
Friday.
Okay.
And we get approved, I would make a motion to approve the care center claim, November 25th.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the Care Center claim for November 25th. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Care Center claims are allowed on unanimous vote. Is there any other questions for Michelle on the Care Center or concerns anyone would like to ask?
Michelle, how's your staff doing? Are they healthy?
Staff, they're doing well. We're testing them twice a week. I did have a staff member test positive today. When that happens, they go home for 10 days automatically. And then, according to the guidelines, we'll test them 3 months later, unless, of course, they get sick.
Are your patients doing okay?
Yes, they're doing fine. They've all tested negative. Pardon me?
I thought he was asking how your patients are doing.
Everything's going okay so far.
And as far as visitors, are you allowing any visitors at this time, or what's the protocol on that right now?
No visitors at this time in the building. We have to go 14 days without any positive cases in-house, and then the county has to drop below 10% for 14 days before we can start opening back up again. The doctors, of course, are coming in, but that's about it right now.
All right, thank you very much for your report. Next item on the agenda is the Health Department. Angela, are you there, please?
I am. Good afternoon, everyone. We are still continuing with COVID-19. We are planning more and more for vaccine. We have meetings a few times a week now to talk about vaccine. The Pfizer vaccine, which is the ultra-cold vaccine, is looking like it's going to be shipped out at some point in December to the states, and then the states will distribute it to local health departments. Individuals who are to receive that initially will be hospital workers or in the higher risk positions, higher risk for exposure to COVID-19. So I have discussed it with all 3 hospitals. Health departments will receive the vaccine, and then we will distribute it out to the hospitals. We are looking to have closed pods or actually open pods in each one of the communities. We are planning that. That's basically going to be driven by the availability of vaccine. We've heard today that the Moderna vaccine is going to the FDA for approval, and we hope to have that around the first part of January is the anticipated drop for that, hopefully sooner than later, though.
Thank you for your report. Press, do you have any questions of the Health Department report? Hearing none. Any other questions in the boardroom for the Health Department report?
How are the schools doing, Angie?
Well, we have cases in the schools. Chester is closed until the 7th. Prairie du Rocher did shut down yesterday for a few weeks to go remote. Schools are working very well with us. We try to keep it confined to classrooms if we can at all. If we have to confine kids to home, But the schools are working very well with us. I'm not going to say that we haven't had COVID in the schools, because we have.
Okay, well, it's good to hear that they're working well with you.
The vaccine, however, is not going to be, this first rollout of vaccine is going to be an adult vaccine. It will not be for anybody under the age of 18. We're not looking for a pediatric vaccine to come out until the fall. So there will not be any vaccinations taking place inside the schools.
I've heard that this round
Yeah.
was for adults.
Andy, are teachers considered to be first line for this vaccine?
Teachers would be in about the second phase. First phase is going to be for healthcare workers, first responders, and long-term care. I have asked that our school nurses be part of that first and initial phase.
Thank you very much for your report, Angela.
Mhm.
Health
Welcome.
Department claims are on the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to read? Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Health Department claims are not in for this round. Okay. So the next item on the, is no appointment on this particular round. We'll take care of those on the next meeting, September 11th. Public comment,
Mr. Chairman, I move that we table public comment for right now and move to where Jim Schneersall can address the working class resolution.
okay. We will bring them up then under new business, and we'll move to the working cash resolutions. We have two of them on the agenda. One is the IMRF/working cash resolution. Jim, Mr. Spursel, do you have anything you would like to speak to on this resolution?
Well, both the IMRF and the Social Security working cash transfer resolutions are funds that were needed in part because of the difficult general times, and in part because of the real estate taxes having been somewhat delayed in terms of their collection until 2021, and the expectation is that the working capital fund would be made whole through the use of that 2000 tax levy upon collection.
Thank you very much. The one for the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, IMRF, is for $425,000. I think we can dispense with reading. Do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to adopt.
Well, I was just going to ask you, but it's in the county, but they're numbering the ordinances.
So they go with calendar year, not.
Resolution number 425,000 IMRF. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we do not require a roll call vote, so call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The IMRF/working cash fund resolution is adopted. The next one is the same resolution for the Social Security fund/working cash fund. It is for $150,000. It is 20-29.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the Social Security fund/working cash fund, ordinance 20-29 for $150,000. Roll call vote is not necessary, so call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Social Security/working cash transfer resolution is approved. Okay, Mr. Spursel, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that is all that I have.
Well, thank you very much. That completes your portion with the meeting. You're welcome to stay, obviously. And I know the press is on remotely, but if you want copies of these, we'll have them available when you're ready. Okay, back to the public comment area. And thank you very much, Mr. Back to the public comment
Certainly.
area.
I will go ahead and sign off. Happy to answer any questions after the fact as well. Thank you all. Be healthy.
Thank you. First on public comment, before we call for the general public, there's some issues here that have come up that Dr. Keenan would like to speak to.
Sure. Under public comment today, I've asked personnel from the Sheriff's Department to come. We have Jared Peters here with us, and Jared will be speaking to a recent survey that was done, an inspection report, let us say, of the jail. And during the inspection, numerous improvements were noted. The jail and facilities were exceptionally clean, and detainees interviewed made no negative comments regarding the Randolph County Jail. Jail Administrator Peters and the jail staff should be commended on their commitment to the operation of a safe and secure facility. This comes from Edward Bob Bowen, manager of the Office of Jail and Detention Standards. So we'd like to give Jared a chance to just talk a little bit about the inspection report and what's going on now.
Thank you, Mark. Just a few things. August 12th, we had our annual jail inspection. As you stated there were several improvements that were made. Some of those improvements we obviously in the time and era we're at right now with COVID, we've also implemented a COVID-19 mitigation plan. We have had inmates with our facility that tested positive. Since then, we've had several of those also we've all followed that mitigation plan in order to come back and we also implemented along the way some new blister packs for medications to help maintain and control medications. We administer to the inmates. We're in one of the blister packs related for inmates for dates and times when they're supposed to be administered. So there's a chance for error in administering all medications to minimize. With you guys built everything like that, as far as the heating and cooling down there, we upgraded one of the AC units on top of the jail to help with the humidity issues we're having in, and it's definitely helped. There's been fewer and fewer complaints about the temperature and humidity within the facility. We purchased a new stove and range. The old one that was in there was the original back in the we purchased that, partially through some commissary money, as well as you guys helping out with some of the new phone systems from within the facility have helped communication levels from within, from desk to desk, and dispatch, back to back, as far as communication. Other than that, there's one thing that I want to really note in the inspection. Last year, 2 years ago, we purchased a handheld device called a Guardian scanner. It helps us do our self check, helps us maintain population. Everything we've done there is monitored and recorded on the handheld. When the inspector came in, he requested a copy of our self check, so 30-minute self check that are mandated for us to do. We had a 98% success rate on our 30-minute check. Most jails still struggling with 90%. So I want to commend the staff for our work dedication to safety, making sure we're within guidelines. But other than that, I appreciate what you guys do. You guys help us out tremendously working with us and the equipment, whatever we need down there to help maintain the jail and keep it to the high standard required. I appreciate that.
Since I've been on board, we've been taking plumbing issues, which I was thinking about when you were talking about humidity, there's water leaking behind the cells, and jail gates, and the roof, water fixtures in the cells, we replace those, and we had an HVAC and dealt with water temperature issues.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was a big issue for a while, we've got it maintained, and our maintenance department does a good job staying on top as far as, you know, making sure the water temperature is correct out there, and, really heating, cooling. Now that we have the new HVAC that's been put in, and everything is good over there, we can maintain more of a steady temperature.
Good. Thank you. Mary and Dan, do you have any questions for Jared?
Hearing none. Mary, Dan, are you still on the line?
Yes, I could barely hear what Jared was saying now.
Same.
Okay, do you have any, we'll move them over here closer. Do you have any questions?
We have Mary, there's a full report, that we got, that we can forward you a copy of, if you would like to have a copy of that for the paper.
That would be fabulous.
Yes, that would be great, yeah.
Do you guys want the full report, or do you want Jared's highlights?
Either or.
Okay, I'll get it to you.
All right, is there any other public comment on the phone? Any other public comment?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a brief comment for today. I would like to congratulate all our office holders who took their oath of office this morning. It was good to see the process follow through after all the hard work, and I want to thank Judge Brown for doing the oath for all of our winning office holders, and thank everybody that was involved in the process.
Thank you very much, Dr. Keene, and I would also like to echo the same sentiments. I'm very happy for every one of them. One point for you, Mary and Dan. You'll note we did not reorganize the board with this meeting. We cannot reorganize the board until after the first Monday of December by statute. So at our next meeting on December 11th, we will elect a new board chairman, and I'll be making a motion for Dr. Keene at that time, since my 2-year term is up on the board. So that's why that did not occur at this one, and that will occur at December 11th. Okay, next item on the agenda, we have, and this is an interesting one, we have the treasurer's real estate tax resolution. With state law this year changed, that because of the COVID issues, a county has the right to waive late fees on the first payment of real estate taxes if such late fees did actually occur. And so the county needs to adopt a resolution in order to do that. That is the resolution that is up on the agenda that was prepared for us by State Attorney Walker. And it's here. And here it is. And what's the volunteer read? Okay.
Resolution was 23rd. Whereas 35 ILCS 200/21-27 has been amended, the Illinois General Assembly, and provides in pertinent as follows. For the 2019 taxable year payable in 2020 only, the county board of a county with fewer than 3 million inhabitants may adopt an ordinance or resolution under which some or all of the interest penalties for the delinquent payment of any installment other than the final installment of taxes for the 2019 taxable year that otherwise would be imposed under section 21-15, 21-20, or 21-25 shall be waived for all taxpayers in the county for a period of 120 days after the effective date of this amendatory act of the 101st General Assembly, or until the first day of the first month during which there is no longer a statewide COVID-19 public health emergency, as evidenced by an effective disaster declaration of the governor covering all counties in the Whereas the Randolph County Board of Commissioners, after consultation and agreement with the Randolph County Treasurer, Justin Jeffers, desires to waive the interest penalty of delinquent taxes for the first installment for the 2019 taxable year payable in 2020 until the first day of the first month during which there is no longer a statewide COVID-19 public health emergency, as evidenced by an effective disaster declaration of the governor covering all counties in the state. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. The Randolph County Treasurer shall waive the interest penalty for the delinquent payment of the first installment of taxes for the 2019 taxable year payable in 2020 until the first day of the first month during which there is no longer a statewide COVID-19 public health emergency, as evidenced by an effective disaster declaration of the governor covering all counties in the state.
Thank you for your reading. Mary, Dan, any questions on that? Hearing none. Do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution is hereby adopted.
That waives the interest on the first installment, which is part of what's allowable through the state, new legislation this year.
That's correct. That was part of the COVID legislation, bills that were passed during this year. Okay, next item on the agenda is our regular monthly raffle license application from Ducks Unlimited. It's part of chapter. Is there any questions? Would somebody like to make a motion to adopt? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the raffle license application, Ducks Unlimited, steel mill? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Raffle license is hereby adopted. Last item on the agenda is CIC software. Yes, if you'd like to speak, go ahead, or I can.
Okay, we'll do it together.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, the motion to buy the CIC software comes from a situation that really is none of our doing. Our current software provider has told us that they're not going to support the software that it takes to do our payroll that we do from time to time. And so because of that, it forced us to go look for another provider for this software that we use to do our payroll functions with. And that payroll function is not real simple. It involves lots of record keeping. It involves a time clock and other issues that go along with it. So in the research that our staff has done, they recommended the CIC software, which is used by quite a few counties around the state of Illinois. It's a program that we heard from. We had the representative from CIC come and talk to us, and we have agreed to purchase the CIC software.
Thank you very much for that report. And this will be a 3-year licensing agreement with them. Once the software is purchased and completed through the 3-year licensing agreement, then we'll just simply go on to annual maintenance. And I believe besides payroll, it also handles some other general ledger and accounts payable functions as well. But basically, because of the I'll say expiring of our other software, we were basically forced to do this. It is a 3-year contract, and over the course of the 3 years, one moment, please. Have to find the appropriate page. The total cost is $92,312 over the course of the 3 years.
So it's divided up into yearly payments.
Actually, the first yearly payment of the budget is only $9,500, and it jumps to $49,000 for the last 2 years, approximately. Okay, then after that, after you get the software purchased, and then you'll have what they call basically the maintenance fee yearly, which I believe is $18,000 per year, but that's included in the first 3 years. So that's going to time.
And I do believe this is the appropriate time to be doing this. We're starting off with a new fiscal year, and we'll have lots of reports that come due in February.
New fiscal year and new calendar year for payroll beginning January 1st. That gives them the opportunity to begin to set this stuff up and move into it. Any questions from anyone?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the purchase of the CIP.
Second. We have a motion and second to approve the CIP software. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The purchase of CIP software is approved. We have no need for executive session today, so we will recess to our next regular meeting, which is the first meeting of the fiscal year, which is December 21. It'll be on December 11th, 2020. That's Friday at 9 a.m. normal time here in the boardroom and available on conference call depending on COVID. Any further questions, discussion? Hearing none. Do we have motion to recess?
Second.
We have a motion second to recess. Anything else? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand in recess until December 11th, 2020 at 9 a.m. here in the boardroom. Thank you very much for everyone that joined.